Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Blue Bench Podcast. Today, our special guest is Nancy Keenan, a former educator, lawmaker, and Montana's superintendent of public instruction, and of course, a national leader on reproductive freedom from Helena to Washington, D.C. Nancy, thanks so much for joining the show.
Great to be here, Gabby. So glad you invited me.
Yeah. So for many folks who work in politics and advocacy in Montana, and particularly those close to the Montana Democratic Party, you're known as kind of a legend and trailblazer. But for those who might not be super familiar with your work, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional background?
Sure. Born and raised in Anaconda, Montana, in the shadow of the stack, and so actually worked at the smelter so I could go to college. Wanted to be a teacher, so I have these deep roots in Montana, deep roots in education, making a difference there. And I actually was state superintendent when the issue of reproductive rights and women's freedom came up when we had a rally on choice in Helena. There were 5 of us, all elected statewide officials, all Catholic, and 3 of them men, 2 of us women. And the Catholic bishop called the women, me and Andy Bennett, and wanted meetings with us. Long story short, that really was kind of the pinnacle of understanding government has no role in reproductive rights, and neither does religion. Everybody has their religious beliefs, and women talk to their God when accessing abortion care. But the fact is that it's nobody's business but women, and if they choose their family, their doctor, and their faith. But otherwise, stay the hell out of it.
Sure. I want to ask you how you pivoted professionally from a career of education into reproductive advocacy. How does that story come about?
Mm-hmm. So after having served as state superintendent of schools, having that experience with the Catholic bishop, who, just as a sidebar, I said to him, you can dictate in the halls of your cathedral, but you cannot dictate in the halls of this Capitol. And that just brought home the importance of our own, as women, making our own decisions. And as we raise young women and young men, the importance of saying, think about this. What other issue area does the government want to be so involved in? And it happens to be women's, and has consistently been women's reproductive health. And so when I left the state superintendent's job, I moved to Washington, D.C., couple jobs in between, People for the American Way and advocacy group for just freedom of speech and the attacks of the religious right. And then ended up at NARAL Pro-Choice America as their president, and for almost 10 years. And so that was at the end of I was there for the 4 years of George W. Bush, and then the era of Barack Obama. So, we fought the good fight under George W. Bush. We were able to stop stuff federally at some level. Still, the battles were going on in the states. But, and then under President Obama, having a little bit of a breather to basically make sure that women did have reproductive health care. And so that's, from Helena to DC, it was a natural transition to go fight for women's health, and making sure that when George W. Bush was there, the all-out effort to ban abortion.
I want to ask you about what reproductive freedom means, because I feel like sometimes we just think about access to abortion, which is a part of it. What does reproductive freedom mean to you, and what do you wish people understood more about what that means?
Yeah, really good question, Gabby. Yeah, it is all access to all women's health. And in the case of, if you really do want to reduce the numbers of abortion in the country, make contraception available free to women. So it means contraception, prevent the pregnancy, is critical. And it gives women the ability to decide when they're going to have a family, if they're going to have a family. And so absolutely, contraception starts that. IVF in vitro for those women that are having difficulty. It means making access to that nobody's interfering if they're choosing to have children via that avenue, and making sure that that is available to them. It means in the case of places like Planned Parenthood and other clinics, they provide everything from the family planning discussions to cancer screenings to STD infection tests. This is our reproductive health overall. And in younger kids, preventing cancer later in life and having the immunizations to prevent HPV. And so all of that is part of our health, women's health. And so although the focus and the attacks have originally on abortion, it has now become all of it. It has become all of it that they are attacking, as though women are merely, owned by the government, that they're going to tell you what you can and cannot do with your healthcare decisions. That is unbelievable in 2025. And yet here we are. Abortion and healthcare services were more accessible after the passage of Roe in 1972 than they were, let's just say, 1923 pre-Dobbs. And because of all the restrictions, all the hoops women had to go through, even to get into the clinic, if they were only in there for a cancer screening or in there to get contraception access or whatever. So it is the continuum, the spectrum of our health as women. And again, it's nobody's business but ours. But obviously, and the American public believes that and supports that. These legislators across the country and now in Congress and the presidency are basically putting us back pre 1972 with Roe.
Right. Well, you did bring up Planned Parenthood. There are some major federal and state funding cuts facing Planned Parenthood across the country right now. How far back do you think this will take reproductive freedom, and how much will it hurt the progress we have made?
Oh, it's devastating. And I, just doing a little background here, I think the number of clinics that have closed across this country since the Dobbs decision is huge. And then you layer on that women, the banning of abortion in states immediately, because they never took it off the books following Roe, that the cost to women to travel to a state where abortion may still be legal, or being able to access care, or that they have a miscarriage. I was talking to Blue Mountain Clinic here in Missoula not too long ago. We have women traveling in from Idaho, which has horrible, horrible legislation. We have women driving, fearful that if they cross the border, that they're going to be arrested leaving Idaho. These are women that are maybe having a miscarriage. And they talked about the number of women that are miscarrying, could die on their way from Idaho to Montana because of the ban in Idaho and the criminalization that we're seeing across the country. Texas, that you're going to jail. If you're a physician, you're going to jail for life if you perform an abortion in Texas. Georgia, forcing that woman who was pregnant and brain dead to carry that child to term and make sure that it wasn't her family that made the decision about her life, but the decision was made by the government and politicians. I mean, it's just unprecedented what's happening to even being able for women to come to another state. Then you go into now banning the kind of medication that can be sent, mifepristone, to patients and clients in another state, and what they're trying to do to outlaw that, prevent that under the Comstock Act. So it continues, and at every single turn, if they're not going to penalize the physician, put them in jail, they're going to penalize women and put them in jail. I mean, right to life, my foot. This is an attack on women in this country. So fundamental to who we are and how we live, that I hope the outrage that we saw following Dobbs, that outrage has not subsided or has diminished, because this is only going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, that definitely is. It's hearing that all at once. It's really overwhelming, and it's a lot of bad news. But last year we did have some good news. CI 128, which codified the right to abortion in the Montana Constitution, passed overwhelmingly. Um, so are you feeling comfortable that Montanans and I guess folks from Idaho will continue to have access to reproductive care in Montana?
Yes, I think because now it's enshrined in the Constitution, so no matter in our state constitution, so there will be some protection. But let's not just think that, oh, all is good in Montana, because look, there was a disconnect. We passed CI 128 and elected an entire slate of federal officials from the Senate to the U.S. House that are anti-choice and that are going back to Washington, D.C. and figuring out, how do you defund Planned Parenthood? How do you defund a Medicaid funding for poor women who need to access basic care? How do you do all of this that we depend on as citizens? So people have got to realize the personal is political. And you can't just say, well, we're going to enshrine it in the Constitution and then vote for politicians whose only goal is to tear that down. And if they can't tear it down in Montana via Constitution, they will damn figure out how to cut the funding so we don't have access to Blue Mountain Clinic, Planned Parenthood, or other clinics in Montana. That the funding goes away, and that when there is no insurance funding, so that's the biggest thing, the attack on not allowing insurance companies to cover women's reproductive health as part of their policy. Once you eliminate that, then the cost for women is out of bounds. They can't pay to go to a parenthood or travel from another state. So, gosh, if there's one thing I want people to just have branded in their mind, the personal is political. And you better damn well understand where these politicians that are running and say, oh, no, we're not going to do anything to overturn women's health care. Oh, no. And yet every day they wake up and are voting to take away funding, to take away clinic access, to take away being able to mail Miffy per stone across state lines. Every single day they are denying women in this country access to all reproductive health. And in Montana, yes, maybe we sustain it. But if we don't have a Planned Parenthood clinic, if we don't have a Blue Mountain clinic, where do women in Montana go? Travel to California, travel to Oregon, travel to Washington, travel somewhere, travel to New York. So this, yes, good for us for passing it. Not good for us that we elected a slate of Republican U.S. Senate and U.S. House that have no compassion about women's health care, or give a damn of whether or not it should be protected in this state. So there's a bit of a disconnect here that Montanans have to figure out.
There is a massive disconnect, and it is truly puzzling. And it is interesting, of course, we're seeing lawmakers, even, at the lawmaker level, there are Republicans introducing bills attacking women's reproductive freedom, regardless of 128. And I see that as a threat as well. And we see, of course, those same lawmakers attacking the courts. So there is a bit of folks like, how long will we have this, enshrined in the Constitution? What will happen to the Montana Supreme Court? So there's that extra layer of anxiety. Where will it really stay enshrined in the Constitution? Could the courts, I don't know. Could they?
You're right. Could the courts overturn it? Because of the movement on personhood, and we're seeing that at the federal level, so that the minute a woman conceives, it is considered a person. And if that's the case, and you go down that path with the United States Supreme Court eventually, or other challenges around personhood, then the Constitution of Montana means nothing. It means nothing. So again, people have to be informed, and you can't wait for other people to take care of it. You cannot wait that somebody else is going to fix it. And then, to your point, Gabby, is such a good point. We are on the brink of the only backstop to this insanity are the courts. And in Montana, we are the cusp right there. Are we going to maintain a court that literally sees the right to privacy, the right to health care, the right for our own independent decisions? Do we see that as a fundamental right as a living, breathing human person being in this state? Or do we say, oh no, you've conceived that is a person. So you, as the adult, have no rights. You, as the woman in this situation, have no right to determine your health care. And that is the next wave, is this push again, although it didn't go far initially. The push on personhood is basically the next, I think, in the courts, will be the battle we see engaged.
That leads me to my next question. So post-Dobbs, what are the most urgent priorities in the reproductive freedom movement?
Mm-hmm. Register and vote, number one. You can carry a sign, you can go to a rally, you can post your posts on social media. It doesn't make a difference if you are not registered to vote and get your friends and family and other people to vote. Second thing is, then you have to understand who stands for what. And you can't just vote this party line business that we're doing. Take a look why people are running and what they're running on. And make sure that on the issue of reproductive health, that they are totally in the camp of saying women will make this decision, not a politician, not a government, not anybody but the woman. And, so that's the most important thing we can do as individuals. Vote, make sure you understand who's running on what, and reject those that say women, oh, it's okay, it's going to be okay. No, reject them. Vote them out. And then third, then you have to understand what's going on in your state legislature. All politics are local. And we can't always influence what happens at the presidential level or what's happening in Ohio or what's happening in Georgia. We can influence what happens in Montana. And we have to make sure that we are informed and help legislative candidates that are pro-choice. Make sure that we watch what those folks are doing and hold them accountable when they're trying to pass these archaic, draconian laws. And make sure that everybody knows that don't let them hide. I have noticed that the kind of operation of Republicans in Montana, both at the federal level and the state level, hide. Don't talk. Don't tell people what you stand for. Put it out there that you wave the American flag and you love America. And oh, by golly, we're not those liberal, woke, whoever. No, not good enough, people. Ask them where the hell they stand on issues that are important to you. And if they don't, if they are silent and they hide in it's stealth, that's a no vote. That's a throw them out. If they refuse to answer your questions as a voting citizen of this state, throw them out. Enough already. And it's at the local level with your city councils and mayor races or whatever it is, because this is percolating up. This is coming from across the board. And every office in your community, make darn sure you know who's running and get out there and vote. It's the only way a democracy survives. Your voice is a vote. Your voice is a vote. If you don't vote, zip it. Don't show up at any rallies. Don't do all this other nonsense posting. If you don't vote, you have lost your voice. So that is obviously I get pretty, excited about that, but it is so true. People think it's enough to go to a rally. It's not enough, people. That's just one step. Go vote. Go vote.
So what gives you hope in this moment? Are there any places where you see some momentum?
I always have had hope in the next generation of people. Look, us old gray hairs are still fighting, and we will, because it is for our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our family, our neighbors. But, and I know young people are busy. They're at jobs. They are raising kids if they have children, and they're busy. But again, I go back to the personal is political. If you want to see a different future, then you have to get political. Pure and simple. If you want to see a better future, get political. I recall when I was at NARAL and we couldn't figure out why young women, particularly young women, were like, "Oh, that's good." And we were fighting on the Supreme Court front. We were seeing that the court was tipping. And we'd talk to young women and we'd say, what will it take? What will it take for you to realize that Roe is at risk? And the answer was, oh, if it's overturned, I will take to the streets. Okay, well, it was overturned. We tried preventing that. We tried. We didn't give it a hell of a go. But when you have elected officials that appoint United States Supreme Court justices, we lost Roe after 50 years of fighting to keep it there. Now young women and young men, because this isn't just about women, this is about young men, when and if their involvement with this issue has got to become front and center. What is more important than our basic right to make a decision about a pregnancy or whatever is about our body? That they can say, no, you can't do that. The decision today on trans and trans youth out of the Supreme Court. So parents don't have a decision here now. Only the government has a decision. I mean, this is insane what this country is doing. And the next generation, back to the hope. I'm sorry, Gabby, back to the hope. I am hopeful that the next generation, and quite honestly, those of us that are still fighting, we will never give up. Let me just say that. We will never give up making sure that women have this ability to make the decision for themselves.
Okay. Let me see how I ask this. You brought up men, and it just introduced this question. How is the women's reproductive freedom movement bigger than just for women?
Because women don't get pregnant by themselves, for God's sakes. You know, it's just not like, oh, well, let's just have that today. So we need allies, and we need allies in our male counterparts in this country. And it doesn't mean just young men. It means your fathers and your grandfathers, and it means your uncles and all the people that care about women in their lives. It means them being an ally in this fight. Because you can't do it alone. And even though women are more than half the population, I believe we're 51, not all of us are pro-choice, pro-decision making. But the fact is, we need allies, and particularly young men, because it's going to be in their lifetime, that they may be faced with an unwanted pregnancy. And even though she ultimately gets the final say, they have to realize that if she doesn't have a say, neither does he. And neither does he in the sense of supporting her, of being there. So you bet we need the allies. And for any man in this country who has women in their lives, sister, daughter, they've got to be an ally in this issue. It is the most egregious attack on half the population that we have probably seen in the history of this country.
Okay, now we got to get to the part of the show where we've listened to all of this. I know I'm inspired. I feel like I need to go get up and do something. So let's start with, how can state level leaders, so state level and advocates, be most effective now that federal protections are gone?
Mm-hmm. Get involved locally. Get involved in your community. And that means, look, there are other people that think like you think. And form a small group. It doesn't even have to have a name, but your local legislator, start there, or start with your local county commission or mayor or whatever, because even those folks are trying to do some stuff locally. So number one, get a group together that you are informed. Understand where these people stand. And it's your job then to hold them accountable. It's your job to educate the rest of the community about how egregious their behavior is when it comes to women's reproductive health. So that's number one. And you can do that. 5 people can be an amazing force, and you're not alone, right? But don't try to influence Washington because you're posting something on Instagram. All politics is local, and all the personal is political. So do it locally. Run for office. Why not you? When I ran as a state legislator from Anaconda, Montana, and I remember thinking, oh my God, do I know what I'm doing, as I sat in that body of 100 in the House? And here's what I'll tell you. I wasn't the smartest one in there, but I sure as hell wasn't the one at the bottom of the barrel either. And so you can do it. People can do it. Run for office. Run for the school board. Run for the city council. Run for the legislature against some of these folks. Don't let them get off scot-free. You may not win. I don't give a damn. Run. Hold them accountable. Put their feet to the fire. And then educate the public about how extreme our Montana legislature has become. Support. If you don't want to run, great. Then support people who are running. Help them. Knock on a few doors. They're your neighbors. Just say, hey, this is who I'm supporting, and this is why. Yes, it's scary. But again, this is not a spectator sport, people. We have to be part of the game. Get in the game. Get in the game. Help people that are running. If only you have $5, give them $5. But help people that are running. If they've got the courage, you've got the courage to help them. And I believe that we all have the courage to help. So all politics are local. Get involved locally. Hold these Republican legislators accountable. Not only on these issues, hold them accountable on the environment, hold them accountable on banning books, hold them accountable on this crazy stuff. This is not affecting anybody's pocketbook. It is not affecting our lives. It's not helping farmers or ranchers. It is not doing a damn thing but dividing this country and this state. So hold them accountable and get involved in those races. That's how you make a difference. And that's how we hold on to this democracy.
Nancy, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time. The Montana Democratic Party is always happy from a visit from you. So thank you again.
You bet. Keep up the good work, and let's go fight win, folks. Let's go fight win.